Hi, this is Shupriya from shupriyapanda.com, and today we are going to talk about Airtel and Vodafone. Are they going out of business? We'll find out. So what I want to do here is just discuss about the numbers first, the amount of the problem that they are going to be facing. Then we'll take a deep dive into the AGR. What is it actually, and what's the main point of contention? And then I'll tell you about the current scenario that we are going through. And actually, I was just holding off making this video because there was a deadline of 23rd January, and now that deadline is passed, and we still haven't resolved this case. So, without any delay, let's get into it. So this problem that the telcos are facing is a huge problem. It's a 1.47 trillion rupees problem. So just imagine that you are having this kind of a problem on your hands, and the government also doesn't know what to do with this actually. And I'll show you why. The figures are actually very huge. So as you can see that Bharti Airtel, total dues of Bharti Airtel stand at about 35,586 crore. Vodafone Idea, it owes the government 53,038 crore, and Tata Teleservices Limited (TTSL), which had sold its consumer mobility business to Airtel, it owes rupees 13,823 crore. So this is a huge problem. And if I can break down two of the charges that the government wants, one is license fee charges and another is the spectrum usage charges. So you need to know a little bit about the numbers. So remember that the license fee charges are currently rupees 92,642 crores, and spectrum usage charges are rupees 46,321 crores. So and there are various other charges on top of it, and there are some interest on interest, there is penalty on interest, and host of other charges. So everything comes down to rupees 1.47 trillion, and the total debt is around owed by 15 telcos. So another interesting thing about this is that Reliance Jio, it only has 13 crore that it has to pay to government because they started only in 2016. And as you will be seeing just now, this case has been dragging on for 20 years. Can you believe it? I'll show you. So the irony is that the initial amount that the government had wanted actually was only rupees 34,783 crores. However, even though this was the total license fee and the spectrum usage charges, now it has ballooned to almost 1.47 trillion due to interest, penalty, and also interest on penalty. So it's just a huge quagmire that the telcos are facing right now. Vodafone and Airtel are hit the hardest because they account for 54% of the total license fee dues that the DOT or the Department of Telecom is claiming. So this is a huge problem. Let's just go into the next things. So let's talk a little bit in depth about what is the AGR, the adjusted gross revenue. So basically this thing started, the whole story started in around 1999. So earlier what used to happen was that for the usage of the spectrum and the licensing, everything had a fixed fee. So the companies used to give a fixed fee to the government and the government was happy about it. However, in 1999, the telcos moved to a revenue sharing model with the government. So all the problems started at around this point of time. So what did they need to do in this revenue sharing model? They needed to share a percentage of the revenue that they were making with the government as license fees and as spectrum usage charges. So there are two types of things that they needed to share with the government. So remember one important distinction. This is not a profit sharing agreement. The profits are not being shared. It is a revenue sharing agreement. So even if the telco is running at a huge loss, even then it has to pay the government. There is no escaping because this is adjusted gross revenue, not adjusted gross profits. So coming on to the next thing, this AGR, it's always in a percentage manner. So the percentage is set by the government and there are negotiations that are done with the telcos. So ultimately the telcos and the government, they agree on a percentage and then the telcos pay it to the government. At first, this was a 15% rate. Later, it was reduced to 13%. And back in 2013, it was reduced to 8%. So that's the current rate. However, this is not the main issue. So let's come into the main point of contention. So what's the main point of contention? It's basically in the definition of AGR. So the definition is not the same that the government interprets and the companies interpret. Both of them are interpreting it in their own kind of way. So the case basically started in 2003. However, since the main definition and the main revenue sharing model started in 1999, I was telling that this is a 20-year case. Actually, it is a 17-year case. So for 17 years, the telcos and the government are fighting regarding the percentage of the revenue that they need to share. So what's happening is that they don't agree on the AGR definition. So the adjusted gross revenue definition is not set in stone. So to understand the AGR, you have to understand how the telcos operate. So telcos actually have two types of revenue streams. They have a core revenue stream and they have a non-core revenue stream. So basically, telcos think that the AGR definition, it should include only the core telecom services. So what are the core telecom services? They are calling, they are the data, IVR, etc., etc., which is the main thing that people are using on their phones, right? And today it is mostly data because the calling and everything, it's quite limited in most circles. So the telcos want that only the core telecom services should be charged. So the percentage that we were talking about over here, the 8% AGR, that should apply only to the core telecom services. So if that happens, then the telcos need to pay less amount of money. However, the government says that they want the non-core things too. So the non-core revenue streams, what are these? These are dividends that the companies might declare. These are handset sales, because you might have noticed that many different telcos are selling their own handsets as well. So the government wants a share of that pie. And the rents and the profits from scrap sales also. There are a host of other non-core things. You can look it up on Google. So the government says that all these non-core revenue streams, they also constitute a part of your revenue. So you give that money, a cut of that money to me as well. So I want a cut from your core services. I want a cut from your non-core services. So you cannot escape. Now, what happened was there was a logjam because this definition thing was not being agreed on. So what happened was that the telcos went to the TDSAT. So TDSAT is the main appellate authority. So it's the Telecom Disputes Settlement Appellate Authority, and they were asked to settle this matter between the government and the telcos. So the TDSAT, they actually ruled in favor of the telcos back in 2015. However, the government was not satisfied at all because they wanted a larger share of the revenue, because these tax revenues, they constitute thousands of crores of rupees. So if the government is not taking its adequate share, then it will be difficult for them to run the country, right? They also need the money. So what they did, they went to the courts, and finally what happened, I'll just show you. So finally, the Department of Telecom, they challenged this TDSAT ruling, which was ruled in 2015 in favor of the telcos, and they challenged it in the Supreme Court, and they won. So the Supreme Court said that the TDSAT doesn't have jurisdiction, that it should not be computing the AGR numbers. And the Supreme Court went so far as to say that all these rules and all the revenue sharing percentages and the AGR specifications, everything was, to quote them, crystal clear. And the Supreme Court said that the government had a right to those revenues. So now you can understand what happened. This case had been dragging on for 17 years. And after 17 years, the amount that was due had increased astronomically. So what happened was on 24th October 2019, the Supreme Court ruled that the telcos must pay their dues to the Department of Telecom under Communications Ministry by 3 months. Remember this, 3 months. So all this rupees 1.47 trillion, it had to be paid to the government by 3 months. And the deadline was given as 23rd January 2020. Now, as a side note, you need to understand that back in December 2019, after the Supreme Court had ruled this, the Vodafone Idea chairman Kumar Mangalam Birla, he came out on a public forum and he said that if such a high amount of dues has to be paid by Vodafone India, then we will have to shut shop, and we need government support. If the government is not supporting the businesses, then lakhs of people will be leaving, will be losing their jobs, right? So this is a huge matter. Just imagine the CEO of a company coming out and making this statement. And even Sunil Bharti Mittal, the person who is actually helming Airtel, so he also came out and supported this statement that the government needs to provide relief. And then you can understand what happened. There was a lot of legal logjam, and after the Supreme Court rules on a case, what you can do is that you can file for a review petition, and it will be heard by the bench again. So the Supreme Court judgment of the AGR, there was a review petition filed against it. And what happened is that on 17 January 2020, the Supreme Court quashed that review petition, the review petition that the telcos had submitted. So understand now, the telcos have no recourse. Like, they did not know what to do. And it's a huge figure, you understand, right? That the telcos already have a huge debt burden. And if they have to pay this to the government, it's just not feasible for them at this point of time. So time was running out for the telcos. So what will they do? They are just desperate. They went for a Hail Mary kind of a thing. So what they did was Airtel, Vodafone and TTSL, which is the Tata Teleservices Limited, three of these companies, they filed another review. So this was not said as a review petition. This the lawyers said was a modification petition. So this modification petition, it's not a curative petition, but it's a review petition kind of a thing. Same kind of a review petition, but they termed it as a modification petition. So basically this curative petition, what happens is that the lawyers are not there in that petition. It's directly going to the bench. However, in a review petition, the lawyers, the whole battery of lawyers can come and they can, just go ahead and talk to the bench and put their case forward. So that review petition was also submitted. And as you know that this review petition, it's still going on and we still don't know what's going to be the final outcome of it. This modification petition, the last one that had been given by the telcos. So right now, the modification petition is still with the court and there has been no ruling yet. There is another hearing that's going to happen next week, and 23rd January meanwhile has passed by. And what happened is that 23rd January was the deadline, right? So if the companies are not paying the government by 23rd January 2020, it's actually amounting to a contempt of court as per many expert lawyers. So what happened was that these telcos, they went ahead and just sent a letter to the DOT, and they have clearly outlined in their letter to the DOT, the finance ministry and the government, that they are not disputing the amount. It's not disputed by them. They just want more time. So they want a relaxed payment terms with the DOT, and they just want more time to help get the payment done, because as you know, they are under a mountain of debt and they cannot afford to just forego this much of cash right now to the government. So Justice Arun Mishra is on a bench which is supposed to hear this matter. They have not heard it till now, and we do not know what's going to happen. So this is the current situation that they are in. So the telcos, they have this huge fines, and the government, it's saying that we need to get this amount, because if we don't have these revenues, then it's something that is ours, that we are entitled to. So why will we not take it? So in this myriad complex legal issue, what do you think? Before you arrive at your final decision, just remember that these telcos, they were enjoying life as we know it before the arrival of Reliance Jio. After Reliance Jio came and undercut the competition, they had been forced to lower the prices. So should they not have planned for this kind of an eventuality? Why are they coming out now and they are saying, if we have to pay you, our business will not hold, then we have to exit India, etc., etc. So there is a point to the government's claim. There is also a point to the company's claim. And you cannot really see this thing in a black and white kind of a situation. It's a very complex situation. So I urge you to think about this issue. And if you have any further questions, feel free to put them down in the comments. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.